Now, the biggest trade show of the motorcycle calendar is just around the corner. It's EICMA in Milan, of course. And so in this video, I'm going to go A to Z through all of the major manufacturers with the rumors, leaks, the spy shots, and all those sorts of things to give you a good idea of what to expect when the press day rolls round on November the 4th. So let's dive in with Aprilia, who I think are almost nailed on to announce their entry into this really booming part of the market, which is for small to mid capacity sort of affordable adventure bikes. They already make a Touareg 660, which is a brilliant sort of middleweight offering. Plus, they've got a 457 or 450 parallel twin engine as well that they use in their RS 457 sports bike and the Tuono 457 naked. So it's a logical conclusion to sort of marry the two together. And I think the outcome would be a really properly good bike as well. It's a great engine. The Touareg's fantastic as well. And so yeah, this is definitely one to look out for, and I think it could be a real success. Other than that, I have seen some rumors on some other motorcycle outlets about maybe a tall V4 powered sports tourer, something like a BMW S1000XR. But I will say, beyond the speculation, there's not really much to substantiate this one. The 457 Touareg, for example, has been spotted out testing, so we know it exists. And so yeah, the tall tourer I think is more of a long shot. The Touareg 457 I think is pretty much nailed on. Also though, you know, getting involved in this part of the market, like I say, you've got the Himalayan, you've got the KTM 390, you've got the CF Moto 450 MT, you've got the KLE 500 that Kawasaki just announced. But I think one of the biggest players will be the new BMW F450 GS, which was shown as a prototype last year at the same show. This time around, they're fully expected to announce the kind of final production-ready variant, which is set to be made out in India on their behalf by TVS, and as such will get a new 450 parallel twin that actually gets quite an unusual sort of sound and feel to it. It's got its own 125-degree firing interval, which is unlike any other bike currently on the market. And so yeah, that should help to set it apart from some of the competition. But also in the press release that BMW put out with the prototype last year, they do say they expect it to make close to that 47 horsepower maximum figure that's allowed in the A2 license category. They also say it's going to be really competitive on weight as well, so should be a good ride off-road. And the prototype was certainly pretty well spec'd up and also got the full suite of BMW style switchgear and dash, so very familiar stuff, and it really did look like a proper baby version of the R1300 GS. More recent spy shots and design filings show a cast wheel version as well for the road, but I think it's probably going to look best with the spokes, which I guess might be available as an accessory, or maybe there's two levels of spec. And so definitely another bike that we'll be really keenly keeping an eye out for and getting over to the BMW stand to shoot it as soon as we can. The only complaint I've seen potentially about this bike is that it gets a 19-inch front wheel, which is a compromise of sort of on and off-road ability. Some of the competition, like the KTM, I think like the CF Moto as well, get a big 21-incher, the Himalayan too. But yeah, it has to be a balanced all-rounder, this bike, and so I'm sure BMW have consciously made a good choice there. As for other bikes from BMW, the only other thing I can think of that might pop up is potentially a continuation of their R20 Power Cruiser concept. Absolutely loved that one. I saw it at Motorcycle Live last year and thought it looked fantastic. And so yeah, I'm really hoping they do follow that one up, although I think it's the F450 GS that's going to be the key focus for BMW, and that one's more of a kind of outside chance. They did also patent, I think, a year or two back, the name M1300 GS, so they were expected to make like a hot version of the current GS. No sign of it so far. Maybe it could pop up here as well. But again, I'd probably put that one firmly in the maybe pile. Now, before we get on to the next brand, I just want to say a massive thanks to MCL, formerly known as Motorcycle Live, for supporting the channel and sponsoring this video. We're super lucky in the UK because it's only about a week after EICMA that you've got Motorcycle Live kicking off, where you can see pretty much all of the new bikes that have been announced. Most of the major manufacturers are there. And so before most people in the world, apart from going to EICMA itself, you know, in the UK, we get to see the bikes in the flesh almost immediately, and you can sit on them and size them up and chat to the representatives from the manufacturers and really get to know all about them. So if you are somebody who loves their bikes and wants to be up to date with all the latest 2026 offerings, then I'd massively recommend it as a great day out. And on top of that, you've got the opportunity to like test ride bikes. There's rolling roads on some of the stands as well. There's the Expert Labs talks, there's the action show, there's some great food on offer as well, so plenty to see and do. And so I thoroughly recommend getting yourself down there on the 15th it starts to the 23rd of November at the NEC in Birmingham. Now there's a link down in the description below where you can find out more and pick up a ticket. I will add, for an extra £6 on top of your ticket, you can get one of these Road Skins t-shirts thrown in, so definitely worth a look. And also down there, we've got 5 pairs of tickets. They've been very generous to give away. That giveaway open as soon as this video goes live, so you want to get down there quickly, because what I'm going to do is give the 5 pairs of tickets to the first 5 correct answers. If you can tell me to the nearest 10,000 how many people went to the show in total over the whole course of it for last year's edition in 2024. So yeah, do check out the links down in the description below. Get yourself entered, pick up a ticket if you don't fancy your chances of winning. And once again, a massive thanks to MCL for their support. Now BSA have had a pretty big year this year because they've got the new 650 Scrambler, the new 350 Bantam as well. But it looks like they got something else in the works as well because of this teaser on their Instagram with the EICMA logo. And it says ready to reveal. Now with this one, I've got absolutely no idea. They've done a really good job of keeping this one on the down low, and there's been no other teasers, no leaks, no spy shots, no patents or anything like that. So your guess is as good as mine. I'd assume it'd be something retro, maybe a cruiser. They don't have anything like that. Maybe a cafe racer. They don't have anything particularly sporty in the lineup at the moment. But I'd love to know from you down in the comments what you think they might be announcing. CF Moto have been a little less cryptic, I've got to say. They've started to post a series of teasers on their Instagram as well. One shows a sports bike with winglets, so it looks like a fairly sort of serious affair. That's probably going to be a fairly performance-orientated sports bike. Another, an adventure bike, which I think they say has some kind of market-leading tech on it as well. And I think that one could be this kind of heavily rumoured 1000cc inline triple-powered adventure bike that's said to make over 100 horsepower, about 110, I believe. So that one could be a great bike. It'll go directly head-to-head with the other sort of 800 to 1000cc adventure bikes on the market, like the Tiger 900, KTM 890, the F900 GS, those sorts of things. Although I would expect, with it being CF Moto, that it'll probably undercut the competition massively without having to skimp on many features. So definitely one to look out for if you're after a very capable but still probably quite budget-friendly all-rounder. The other one as well is a naked bike. It's called an NKGP according to the stickers around the headlight there. And so yeah, plenty in store from CF Moto, and we'll certainly be getting down there and checking all those out. In fact, it's one of usually the more impressive stands at the show. Now, Ducati are pretty much most of the way through their sort of world premiere program. They sort of do a bike every couple of weeks leading up to EICMA every year. And so we've already seen the updated Multistrada V4 Rally, the RS versions of the Diavola Multistrada, the new Panigale V4R World Superbike Homologation Special, and most recently the new Monster a couple of days ago with the V2 engine, as they've started to move away from the Testa Stretta, which was getting a little bit old hat. So yeah, one more world premiere left on the first day of EICMA. It'll be on the 4th of November. And so I'm expecting this one to be another couple of bikes perhaps moved over to that new V2 engine. The last two that we're waiting for are the Hyper Motard and the Desert X. Both of them have been spied out testing with the new V2 engine. And so perhaps they're going to announce both of those on the same day, and that would be very nice indeed. The V2 engine is about 6 kilos, I think, lighter than the Testa Stretta that it replaces. And so you can probably expect a little bit of weight savings for these two new models. But also along the way, they'll probably make a few tweaks to the tech, a few tweaks to the styling, just to keep those two models looking fresh. Harley Davidson, I believe, will be present at the show. They've been a bit on-off over the past few years. But I will say, normally they hold all their new bike announcements back to January, and so I wouldn't necessarily expect anything fresh on the stand in Italy. Honda, on the other hand, it's always a big focus for them, EICMA. And while they have already announced a bike or two for the new model year, some new colours, for example, the new CB1000F Retro, well, undoubtedly there'll be a couple of other big ones here And so very much looking forward to seeing how these turn out. One that was leaked a week or so back was a kind of tall sports tourer type bike that's also based on the CB1000 platform. But then also recently they've been teasing the latest development on their new V3 engine that uses an e-compressor as well. So definitely looking forward to seeing what they've done with that one and how it's progressing. And the last thing to keep an eye out for perhaps is that a month or so back they announced an updated Super 4 naked and also a sports bike equivalent, so a small capacity Revy inline 4, but just so far for some Asian markets. I think it was announced in China, for China. It'll probably be available in Japan as well. And so it'll be interesting to find out if those two bikes will be available to the rest of the world. They did get a very good reaction when I talked about them on the channel and posted them on Instagram. And so hopefully they do make them more widely available, but they haven't done in the past. So this one again goes in the maybe pile. Husqvarna, I'm not expecting too much here. Of course, it's been a tough couple of years for their owners, KTM, which we'll get onto in a moment. But then Indian, I believe, after not having a stand last year, are back. And unlike Harley, they actually do typically bring something new when they have a full stand. Now, unfortunately, earlier this year, they announced that they'll be discontinuing their brilliant flat track inspired FTR lineup, so there won't be anything new there. And so instead, I'd expect them to stick to their cruisers and tourers and stuff like that, usually with some new paint jobs and maybe a bit of shuffling around of the specs. That said, at the moment it is a bit of a, transitional time for Indian, given that Polaris just sold them off to a private equity group. And so maybe this won't be the year full of big momentous announcements, and they might come further down the line. Now, Kawasaki are another company who've kicked off quite early this year. They already announced the Z1100 Naked and the KLE 500 middleweight adventure bike. But that said, they are potentially expected to put out a couple of other updates before 2026, like WeBike Japan recently suggesting that the Z900 RS Retro is due a bit of an update. On top of that though, a few months back, they did file some patents which heavily suggested that they might bring back their iconic ZRX Retro, but this time built upon the same 1100 inline 4 platform as that new Z Naked, the Versys 1100 Tourer, and also the Ninja 1100 SX Sports Tourer. Personally, I'm really into this trend for sort of like 70s and 80s inspired retros, and in my opinion, the ZRX is one of the coolest looking bikes ever made, and so hopefully this one actually does materialize. Now, I won't recap on the entire KTM saga. I think you're probably familiar with the fact that they put themselves into self-administration at the start of the year because they got themselves into real financial difficulties. That resulted in them pausing production, which meant that a lot of the bikes that were announced for 2025 didn't actually get made or didn't make it into dealers yet. And so effectively that means for this year that they won't have anything new to announce because they're basically just able to get the bikes made and get the 2025 new models over the line for probably the 2026 model year. In fact, they say there won't even be a stand at EICMA this year, which I kind of respect. If you haven't got anything new, there's no point in spending all that money, and I believe it's very expensive to put a stand on here. But yeah, still, hard to get your head around such a big manufacturer not being present. I do believe, though, they will be at Motorcycle Live with some of those new models on the stand, like the 990 Duke-R, 990 RCR sports bike, and it shouldn't be long before the 1390 Super Adventure starts rolling out, the 1390 Super Duke GT. So there is still new-ish stuff, I guess, to look forward to from KTM. Now, Moto Guzzi was spied quite some time ago now, testing a little retro bike that's also based upon that Aprilia 457 engine. Of course, with them both being part of the same Piaggio group, and so maybe that's a bike we'll finally see announced for 2026. It was such a long time ago that I'd almost forgotten about this bike being tested. But yeah, it could be a great little offering and also give you something a bit more classic looking, let's say, than the Aprilia variants like the RS and the Tuono. Other than that, though, they have been going through a massive rebuild of the Moto Guzzi factory at the moment. They're building the whole thing out, redoing the visitor experience as well. And so maybe that's limited their production capacity a bit at the moment. And so it could be another quiet one for them. There are, however, big plans for their neighbours over at MV Agusta, with a new Brutale Naked already being teased ahead of the full announcement at the show. And I've always loved the Brutales for being a little bit bonkers, both in the styling but also the riding experience as well. Super sharp in the handling, really revvy and powerful, that inline triple. But I will say it hasn't always made for the most practical and usable bike when it comes to sort of general day-to-day road riding. So yeah, that's why I'm very excited to see a new version of the Brutale, but this time using a different engine with the same 950 triple as the Enduro Veloce adventure bike, which is more so tuned for like usable mid-range and low-end grunt. This one I think will make for a very good road bike indeed. Still that sort of typical dynamic looking MV Agusta design, that sort of luxurious level of finish, but just with an engine that's much more suited to getting about on the road. Norton have already teased a new sports bike on their V4 platform. We've seen the spy shots as well, so I can't wait to bring you the full details of that bike when the embargo lifts on the 4th of November. But on top of that, they've also announced 3 names for new bikes that will be launched at EICMA, so the Manx, the Manxar and the Atlas. Now we can assume that one of those is the sports bike, and I think you can probably guess which, but that still leaves 2 new bikes which will be there to shoot. I think we'll be able to shoot these ones the night before, and so they'll probably be some of the first bikes that we post about when that press day starts on the 4th. Very exciting times for Norton with, 3 new models coming out, lots of investment from their new owners at TVS, and so it'll be interesting to see if they can really re-establish themselves as, a major player on the motorcycle market. Now, Enfield always carry a couple of new models at EICMA, and this year it's expected to be the parallel twin-powered version of their Himalayan adventure bike. A 650 Himalayan is a bike that people have been asking for years now. And so yeah, I hope it's as good as people have been hoping for, because it certainly has been a long time in the making. The other thing that people are saying as well, a lot of news sources are reporting, is that the capacity of that twin is going to be increased to 750 from 650. And for sort of adventure touring type riding, where you may be taking luggage and a passenger, a bit more grunt, a bit more performance certainly would be appreciated. Now on top of that, they're also expected to launch soon a new Continental GT Cafe Racer. That, one would assume, would also get the more powerful version of their twin. And this one has been spied out testing as well, along with the 750 Himalayan, but with quite a nice looking sort of half fairing, which very much suits that Cafe Racer kind of image. The other bike that they've very publicly been working on as well is their electric Himalayan, built upon the Stark Varg motor and battery, I believe. And so yeah, we could see some more developments around that bike as well, although I'm not sure it'll be a full production bike yet, but maybe the next step of the process. Now, I've done plenty of digging around Suzuki and there's absolutely nothing out there, so I can't find anything to suggest a new bike's coming, although they almost always have one big announcement right at the beginning, and so it's anybody's guess as to what that might be. They've announced earlier this year the return of the GX 1000. They've also launched those 2 retros as well, the GSX 8T and the GSX 8TT. But after that, yeah, I'm all out of ideas, and so this one is anybody's guess. Triumph say they're launching 29 new models updated for 2026, the most they've ever done in a launch season apparently, and I think we're roughly about halfway through. You've got the new electric trials bikes, for example, a couple new dirt bikes as well, along with, I think, 6 Bonnevilles that we covered last week, including a significantly updated Scrambler 900. I've also got a big announcement to cover from them that's going out tomorrow when the embargo lifts, so that's another new bike to look out for and another new bike to see in the flesh at EICMA. But as for the show itself, well, I think they normally give it a miss. My understanding is that they prefer to launch bikes either side of it, because there's so many new bikes being announced at EICMA itself that there's a good chance you're not going to get as much coverage for potentially quite a big announcement, and so it makes logical sense to me that they'll do that. Yamaha though, well, like many of the other manufacturers, there's usually something to go and cover, and they've just announced as well the new Tenere World Raid, so another bike to go and check out in the flesh. What's to come from them though at the show? I don't have much indication either. The biggest rumour has always been a larger capacity Tenere, given how successful the Tenere 700s have been. Something potentially with the CP3 triple or the CP4 inline 4, but I do think again it's a bit of a slim chance, and so yeah, we'll have to wait and see as to what they unveil. Do hit subscribe though if you want to stay up to date with all the announcements from EICMA. We'll be there in person covering as many as possible, and so yeah, it's probably the place to get a really good feel for all those new bikes. We go into quite a lot of detail and you get all the shots and angles of the bikes. Another massive thanks to MCL though for supporting this video, and like like I say, do get a ticket for that if you want to see the bikes for yourself in the flesh. Let me know down in the comments below which bike you're most looking forward to seeing. I'd love to hear from you guys. A massive thanks for watching today, and we'll see you tomorrow in the next video.